Disclaimer. This is just a friendly Taekook fanfiction story, pure imaginations of mine. Please do not take it seriously. When he tried to his step-brother romantically. The John household had always been a study in contrasts. Jungkook stood at the kitchen counter at 6 in the morning, precisely as he did every day, measuring out his coffee grounds with the same measured precision he applied to everything in his life. 28 grams of beans, ground medium fine, bloomed with exactly 200-degree water. The ritual was meditative, mechanical, perfect. From upstairs came a crash, followed by laughter and the unmistakable sound of someone stumbling over their own feet. Jungkook didn't even flinch. He'd grown accustomed to the chaos that was Kim Taehyung, or rather John Taehyung, though his stepbrother had never quite taken to the family name the way their parents had hoped. Shit, I'm late. Taehyung's voice carried down the stairs, accompanied by thundering footsteps that sounded more like a herd of elephants than one lean 21-year-old law student. Jungkook took a slow sip of his coffee, dark eyes tracking the morning light as it filtered through the kitchen window. He'd been awake since 5, had already completed his morning run, showered, and reviewed case files for his rounds at Seoul Metropolitan Hospital. His white coat hung pristinely on the hook by the door, his stethoscope coiled neatly in the pocket. Taehyung burst into the kitchen like a small tornado, honey blonde hair still damp and tousled, his shirt completely unbuttoned, revealing the smooth expanse of his chest and the silver chain he wore around his neck. His jeans hung low on his hips, and he was holding his tie between his teeth while fumbling with his belt. "Hyung," he mumbled around the tie, flashing a deliberately bright smile. "Can you help me? I can't get this stupid belt." "Use your hands instead of your mouth," Jungkook said flatly, not looking up from his phone where he was scanning the morning medical journals. Taehyung spit out the tie and pouted dramatically, stepping closer. "But Hyung, you're so much better at these things. And you know I'm hopeless with accessories." He held up his wrists where his shirt cuffs hung open. "See? Can't even manage cufflinks." "You don't need cufflinks. Button cuffs work fine." Jungkook's voice remained soft, his eyes still fixed on his screen. "But these are the fancy ones Mom got me," Taehyung whined, moving even closer until he was practically pressed against the counter next to Jungkook. "Come on, Hyung. Just help me this once? Please?" He drew out the last word, making it sound almost obscene, and tilted his head in that way he'd perfected over the years. The angle that showed off his neck made his eyes look wider, more innocent. Jungkook finally glanced at him, his expression completely neutral. "Your shirt. What about it? Button it. You'll be late." Taehyung bit his lower lip, letting his fingers play with the silver chain around his neck, drawing attention to his bare skin. "I thought maybe you could help with that too? Since you're already in the helpful big brother mood. I'm a doctor, not your personal dresser." Jungkook set down his phone with deliberate care and reached for Taehyung's wrist, but not in the way Taehyung had hoped. He quickly, efficiently fastened the cufflinks with clinical precision, his touch impersonal and brief. "There. Now button your shirt before you catch cold. It's summer, Hyung. Colds don't care about seasons." Jungkook was already turning away, rinsing his cup. "And your tie is crooked." Taehyung looked down at the tie he'd managed to loop around his neck in the most incorrect way possible. "Could you?" "No." Jungkook dried his hands on the towel, folded it precisely in thirds. "You're 21 years old, Taehyung. Learn to dress yourself." "You're so mean to me," Taehyung said, but he was grinning as he started buttoning his shirt, slowly, deliberately watching to see if Jungkook would look. He didn't. Other Hyungs are nice to their cute little brothers. Other little brothers don't pretend to be helpless for attention. Taehyung's hands stilled on his buttons. I'm not pretending. You are. Jungkook finally turned to face him fully, and Taehyung's breath caught at the intensity of that dark gaze. You managed perfectly fine for 4 years at university dorms. Suddenly you're back home and can't work a belt buckle? Caught. Damn it. Taehyung recovered quickly, flashing his most charming smile. Maybe I just missed having my Hyung take care of me. I'm not taking care of you. I'm enabling your learned helplessness. But even as he said it, Jungkook stepped forward, reaching for Taehyung's tie. Taehyung went very still. They were close enough now that Taehyung could count Jungkook's eyelashes. Could see the tiny scar above his eyebrow from when he'd fallen off his bike at 16. Close enough to smell that expensive cologne, to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Jungkook's fingers worked the silk with practiced ease, his face a mask of concentration. But Taehyung noticed, because he always noticed, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his Adam's apple bobbed when Taehyung deliberately didn't step back. Hyung, Taehyung said softly, letting his voice drop into a lower register. You know you like taking care of me. I tolerate you. Jungkook's response was immediate, automatic. He tugged the knot tight, maybe a bit tighter than necessary. There. Now eat something and leave. You're going to make both of us late. Come on, just admit it. You'd miss me if I wasn't around to annoy you every morning. Jungkook stepped back, his expression returning to its usual neutral state. What I'd miss is the peace and quiet. But Taehyung had noticed something, a micro-expression, just a flicker. When he'd used that lower tone, Jungkook's pupils had dilated slightly, his breathing had changed just a fraction. Small victories. There's rice in the cooker, Jungkook said, already shrugging on his white coat. Eat. What if I want something else? Taehyung asked innocently. Then you'll have to make it yourself. Jungkook paused at the door, his hand on the knob. And Taehyung? Oh. Next time you pretend you can't dress yourself, I'm leaving you to figure it out. You're not a child. But I'm your baby brother, Taehyung said with exaggerated sweetness. Stepbrother, Jungkook corrected, something unreadable flashing through his eyes. And you stopped being a baby a long time ago. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Taehyung alone in the kitchen with his racing heart and the lingering scent of that damn cologne. Taehyung touched his tie, perfectly knotted as always, and smiled to himself. Challenge accepted, Hyung. Flashback. 3 months ago. Hyung, I think I'm sick. Jungkook looked up from his medical textbook. He'd been studying for his board certification exam, to find Taehyung standing in his bedroom doorway, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm spring evening. You think or you know? Jungkook asked, already seeing through the performance but unable to completely ignore it. He was, after all, a doctor. I know, Taehyung said pitifully, shuffling into the room like he was auditioning for a drama. My throat hurts and I feel hot and everything aches. Jungkook set down his textbook with a sigh. Did you take your temperature? I can't find the thermometer. It's in the medicine cabinet, where it always is. I looked there, Taehyung insisted, moving closer to Jungkook's desk. Can't you just check? You're a doctor. I'm not your doctor. But you're the only doctor I have right now. Taehyung let the blanket slip off one shoulder, revealing that he was wearing only a thin white t-shirt underneath. Please, Hyung? It'll take 2 seconds. Jungkook studied him for a long moment, his clinical eye taking in the slightly flushed cheeks, the way Taehyung was worrying his lower lip between his teeth. He stood, moving to his desk drawer where he kept a personal medical kit. Sit, he instructed, pointing to his bed. Taehyung obeyed with suspicious eagerness, settling on the edge of the mattress and looking up at Jungkook with wide eyes. Jungkook retrieved his thermometer and approached, all business. Open. Taehyung opened his mouth obediently, maintaining eye contact as Jungkook placed the thermometer under his tongue. They stood like that for 30 seconds, Jungkook checking his watch, Taehyung looking at him with an intensity that would have made anyone else uncomfortable. The thermometer beeped. Jungkook checked it. 98.6. Normal. But I feel feverish, Taehyung protested. You feel fine. Jungkook pressed the back of his hand to Taehyung's forehead anyway, a gesture so automatic he didn't think about it. No fever. Taehyung leaned into the touch just slightly. Maybe it's internal? Shouldn't you check my other symptoms? What other symptoms? My throat hurts, Taehyung said, opening his mouth again and pointing. See? It looks red, doesn't it? Jungkook pulled out a pen light, tilting Taehyung's chin up with one hand while examining his throat with the other. His touch was professional, impersonal, but Taehyung's skin felt electric under his fingers. Throat looks fine. No inflammation, no redness. Jungkook stepped back, putting away his equipment. You're not sick, Taehyung. But Hyung. You're fine. Jungkook's voice was firm. And even if you weren't, you know where the clinic is. I'm not on call for family members who suddenly develop mysterious illnesses at midnight. It's only 9 p.m., Taehyung mumbled. Go to bed. You have class tomorrow. Taehyung stood slowly, pulling the blanket back around himself. He paused at the door, glancing back. Would you take care of me? If I was really sick? Jungkook's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Of course. But you're not sick. How can you be so sure? Because I know you. Something flickered in Jungkook's dark eyes. Amusement? Maybe, or exasperation, or something else entirely. And I know when you're performing. Taehyung felt his cheeks flush for real this time. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Jungkook turned back to his textbook. Good night, Taehyung. You're impossible, Taehyung muttered, but he was smiling as he left. Behind him, Jungkook allowed himself the smallest smile before returning to his studies. And a flashback. The first time Taehyung truly tested Jungkook's limits was on a Saturday morning when their parents had left for a weekend trip to Busan. Taehyung had woken early, unusual for him, and padded downstairs to find Jungkook already in the kitchen. Fresh from his morning run. His young shirt clung to his body with sweat, his hair damp and pushed back from his forehead, revealing the sharp angles of his face. Morning, Hyung, Taehyung said, his voice still rough from sleep. Jungkook glanced at him briefly. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Taehyung moved to the refrigerator, very aware that he was wearing only thin pajama pants that hung low on his hips, his chest bare. He could feel Jungkook's eyes on him, just for a second, before his Hyung deliberately looked away. Small victories. Taehyung reached for the orange juice on the top shelf, stretching up deliberately, knowing exactly what the movement did to his body, how his pants slipped even lower, revealing the sharp V of his hip bones. Need help? Jungkook's voice was flat, controlled. I've got it. Taehyung grabbed the juice and turned, catching Jungkook's eyes flicking away from his torso. See something interesting, Hyung? You should wear a shirt. It's hot. Taehyung poured himself a glass, maintaining eye contact as he brought it to his lips. He drank slowly, deliberately, watching Jungkook's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Besides, we're both guys. It's not like it matters, right? Right. But Jungkook's voice was strained. Taehyung set down his glass and moved closer. Close enough to smell Jungkook's sweat mixed with that expensive cologne. Hyung, you have something. He reached up, fingers brushing Jungkook's temple. An eyelash. Jungkook caught his wrist, his grip firm but not painful. Taehyung. Taehyung looked up at him through his lashes, his lips parting slightly. They were so close now, close enough that Taehyung could count the small beads of sweat on Jungkook's collarbone, could feel the heat radiating from his body. What are you doing? Jungkook's voice was low, dangerous. Just being helpful. Taehyung's free hand came up to rest on Jungkook's chest, feeling the rapid thud of his heartbeat. Your heart is racing, Hyung. Maybe you should cool down from your run. For a moment, just a moment, Jungkook's control slipped. His eyes darkened, dropping to Taehyung's lips, and his grip on Taehyung's wrist tightened. The air between them crackled with tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Then Jungkook released him and stepped back, his expression sliding back into neutrality like a mask. Take a shower. You smell like sleep. Taehyung stood there, his wrist still tingling from Jungkook's touch, his heart hammering. One of these days, Hyung, you're going to crack. Not today. Jungkook grabbed a water bottle from the fridge and headed for the stairs. And not ever. But Taehyung had felt it, that moment of hesitation, of want. Jungkook wasn't as immune as he pretended to be. The game was far from over. A week later, Taehyung orchestrated his most elaborate performance yet. It was late evening, nearly 10, and Jungkook was in his room studying for an important board recertification. Taehyung had been watching him through the crack in the door for the past hour, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way he rolled his neck periodically, clearly in discomfort. Perfect. Taehyung knocked softly, pushing the door open without waiting for permission. Hyung, you've been hunched over that desk for hours. Your neck must be killing you. Jungkook didn't look up. I'm fine. You keep rubbing your shoulder. That's not fine. Taehyung moved behind his chair, placing his hands on Jungkook's shoulders before he could protest. Let me help. Taehyung? Just a quick massage. You're all tense. Taehyung's thumbs pressed into the tight muscles of Jungkook's shoulders, and he felt his Hyung's entire body stiffen. See? You're like a rock. This can't be good for you. I don't need. But Jungkook's protest died in his throat as Taehyung found a particularly tight knot and pressed hard. Feel good? Taehyung asked innocently, his voice dropping lower. He worked his thumbs in circles, feeling the tension gradually release under his hands. You work too hard, Hyung. Always taking care of everyone else. Who takes care of you? Jungkook's head dropped forward slightly, a tiny surrender. I take care of myself. But you don't have to. Taehyung leaned closer, his breath ghosting over Jungkook's ear. I could take care of you. If you'd let me. His hands slid from Jungkook's shoulders down his arms, fingers trailing over firm muscle, then back up. On the return journey, he let his fingers slip just slightly under the collar of Jungkook's shirt, touching bare skin. Jungkook caught his hands immediately, pulling them away. But he didn't let go. They stayed like that, frozen, Jungkook's hands wrapped around Taehyung's wrists, their breathing synchronized. You need to stop, Jungkook said, his voice rough. Stop what? Taehyung leaned down further, his lips nearly brushing Jungkook's ear. Stop touching you? Stop trying to help? Or stop making you feel things you don't want to feel? Jungkook's grip tightened. All of it. Liar. Taehyung pulled his hands free and walked around the chair to face Jungkook directly. He perched on the edge of the desk, his legs on either side of Jungkook's chair, caging him in. You want me to stop because you don't want me to stop. That's the real problem, isn't it, Hyung? Jungkook's eyes were dark, dangerous, fixed on Taehyung's face with an intensity that made him shiver. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Taehyung leaned forward, bringing their faces inches apart. He could see the slight dilation of Jungkook's pupils, the way his breathing had quickened. Then why is your heart racing? Why are your hands trembling? Why do you look at me like you want to? Like I want to what? Jungkook's voice was deadly quiet. Taehyung bit his lower lip, his eyes locked on Jungkook's. Like you want to devour me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Jungkook's hands were gripping the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles had gone white. His eyes dropped to Taehyung's lips, watching him bite down on the soft flesh, and something in his expression turned absolutely feral. Get off my desk. Make me. It was a challenge, blatant and dangerous, and for a moment Taehyung thought he'd finally pushed too far. Jungkook stood abruptly, the movement so sudden that Taehyung's legs fell away from the chair. But instead of moving back, Jungkook stepped forward, stepping between Taehyung's thighs, caging him against the desk. You think this is a game? Jungkook's voice was low, almost a growl. One hand came up to grip Taehyung's chin, forcing him to maintain eye contact. You think you can just tease and push and test my limits without consequences? Taehyung's breath hitched. This was new. This was Jungkook without his careful control, without his walls. Maybe I want to see what happens when you finally break. You don't. Jungkook's thumb brushed over Taehyung's lower lip, the touch almost gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then show me, Taehyung whispered. His hands came up to rest on Jungkook's chest, feeling his heart pounding. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. But even as he said it, Jungkook's head was tilting, his face moving closer. Their breaths mingled, lips almost touching. Jungkook jerked back like he'd been burned. Get out. His voice shook slightly. Now. Taehyung slid off the desk, his legs unsteady. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, the almost kiss hanging between them like something tangible. "One of these days," Taehyung said softly, "you're not going to be able to stop." Get out. To be continued. Part 2 coming soon. Thanks for watching.